Hello, my scholars. Today we're going to talk about the Baby Math IA, the Basic Data Gathering Diagnostic. First, I want to talk about why we're doing this. What we're doing with this assignment is I want to check out your soft skills that you have and that you need for the math internal assessment. What I have found is that, yes, my seniors are struggling with the math, but they are also struggling with things like copying data from Google Sheets into Google Docs and making a good table from that data and things like that. How to collect data, how to put it into Desmos, these kinds of things. So that's what I'm kind of, again, this is a diagnostic to see what kind of soft skills you have and also to see what kind of soft skills we really need to work on for both you and for me to be able to put together a good math internal assessment. Okay, so I just want to go over it right now. So basically, yeah, we're practicing data gathering. This was something that my seniors really struggled with, was the data gathering aspect. So what we're going to do this quarter is we're going to do data gathering several times to practice just gathering simple data. So this one's going to be pretty open-ended. You're just going to find something interesting in your life that you'd like to learn more about mathematically. Okay? Pick something simple. Okay? You need to find an aspect of that something interesting that changes. All right? Something that's different. This is another thing that I found scholars can get. I had one senior that spent, and I could tell, hours upon hours upon hours, but she didn't find something that changes, and so basically her data was a boring flat line that didn't do anything interesting. And then she had a really hard time figuring out why her data was like that. Well, because you had to find something that changes. We're studying variables, things that vary, things that change. Okay. Then we need to figure out how to measure the aspect of that something interesting that changes. Okay? So just find something and how to measure it. That actually is hard in and of itself. And I'm going to tell you, these three steps together kind of work together. And it's in fact, often figuring out how to easily measure something might change what you did. I personally, and for when I was making the exemplar, probably spent maybe an hour thinking about different things that I could measure around my house. Before I settled on something really nice and easy to measure. Okay? You want to measure that thing at least 30 times and record the data. Now, I know I said at least right here, but as you will see on the exemplar, I only measured 28 things, and the last one was a stretch and kind of messed up my data. So it's really around 30 times. Okay? So around 30. So, but get close to 30. Okay? All right? You're going to put that data in Google Sheets. I want you to practice working with Google Sheets. Okay? You're going to make a graph of that data, okay? You'll probably want to make a histogram, all right? But I don't know. Part of the skills, the soft skills, learning what kind of data you want to make and whether that data fits or not. I'm seeing lots of strange graphs from my seniors that don't really make sense, okay? Think about the style of graph that you want to make and what that graph means and if it's appropriate for the data that you've gathered, okay? And if it's not, hey, we're going to make these mistakes now so that we do not make them on the Math IA. All right? That's what we're working on. Okay? It's okay. That's what we're doing. You're gonna submit this, revise it. It's okay. All right? And then yes, I also do want the basic stats of the data, the mean, median, mode, Q1, Q3, IQR, standard deviation. Now you know how to do all this on your calculator, but hey, you don't have calculators, so let's use Google Sheets to find these. All right, now you might be saying to yourself, hey, Mr. Hunnicutt, these are really vague. I'm not sure what you mean. I don't know what to measure or how to measure it. Here's the most important thing, kids. Yeah, you or your teacher, you're going to have to figure it out without anyone telling you exactly what to do. All right? That is part of the assignment. That is a key part of the IA. And honestly, I think a lot of students are having this sort of philosophical objection to, no, a math class should be the teacher tells me what to do and I do it, and the Math IA and IB Mathematics is not like that at all, okay? And so there's this assumption that I think my seniors are having of, well, I should just be doing what somebody else is telling me. No, you are making up the steps. You are not following up somebody else's steps, okay? If math is a recipe, you're not following anybody else's recipe. You are making your own recipe with these IA type activities. Okay, so especially I am going to expect you to make lots of mistakes. That's okay. The purpose of this quarter is I want you to make these mistakes now so that you do not make them on the Math IA. okay? That you make the mistakes, you fix the mistakes, you learn from the mistakes on the Math IA, okay? Yeah, because trust me, it's a lot easier to do it before than on, all right? So you're going to have to be brave, all right? You're going to have to try something. I want you to make all the dumb mistakes in your data gathering now, all right? And I wanted to use this assignment to diagnose the soft skills that you're going to need to master Math IA, all right? Now, originally, I was going to break this assignment into multiple parts, okay, where you would explain your interesting thing and how you're going to measure it, and I would help you figure out like how to measure it and things like that before you waste the time on data gathering. Feel free to consult me, by the way. Send me an email if you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, that's fine. Please do it. But honestly, here's the deal. I had lots of seniors do that, and I actually made that a step along the process. And what I found with my seniors is that they simply did not believe me. They seemed to think that because they thought that what they were doing was simple, I knew that what they were doing was hard and was going to waste them a lot of time. So then I would recommend something else, which to my seniors sounded more complicated, sounded like the teacher was giving them extra work. Okay, so they didn't do it, and then they went back to the thing that they wanted to do, and then 20 hours later, having spun their wheels, then they realized that, oh, maybe they should have followed Mr. Hunnicutt's advice. So yeah, I've read quite a few IAs recently with scholars because spinning their wheels because they couldn't do what they wanted to do with the data because they didn't spend that extra hour to collect the data properly on the front end. All right, that's what we're working on. And honestly, I don't know. I think you just kind of have to learn some of this data gathering stuff from experience. Okay, I suspect that if you know. I think when I had these kinds of activities in high school, I had to do the same thing. I had to learn the hard way of like how to gather data. That it's sometimes you need to put a little more work on the front end to save you a bunch of time on the back end. All right. And I think that's kind of something you have to learn in hindsight, which is why I wanted you to do this whole assignment together. Okay. You're probably going to try several different things that you want to measure. They're not going to work. And then you'll settle on something that is possible to measure. And then that's the one you're going to use. That's okay. Okay, that's part of this process. And in fact, I've heard that most PhD research, a lot of time of like researchers is spent not actually doing research, but of thinking of research things and then realizing they're too complicated or too difficult to measure. And so they toss the idea. That a lot of it is rejecting ideas of what to measure because it's too complicated to measure. So I don't know, I guess I'll find that out. But yeah, so when you're all done with this, I want you then to write up the whole thing as a little 1 to 2 page paper. All right, title it, write your name. Okay, and then from each of the steps that we had up here, hey, give me 1 to 2 sentences, maybe more about what you're interested in, why you want to learn. Okay, 1 sentence about that aspect of change. Okay, you might even include those discarded aspects that don't change. Okay, I want about 3 sentences about how you measured that aspect that changes. Okay, include clear instructions so that someone could duplicate your process. All right, like that's because you will be making up these steps, not getting them from somebody else. All right, insert a nice table of your data in Google Docs with clear titles, labels, and very little white space. I'm seeing lots of very large, very ugly tables, my seniors. So we're going to work on this little skill. And then I want you to insert the nice graph of your data that you made in Google Sheets. Okay. I want that graph to be labeled accurately. If you don't have a correctly labeled graph, like you can't read anything or tell anything from it. All right, and then I also want you to list those basic stats that I listed up here. So the mean, median, mode, Q1, Q3, IQR, standard deviation. And again, use Google Sheets to figure those out. Okay. So then I want you to end with at least 3 sentences of reflections about what you learned, about your something interesting, but also about this process. So now, not to leave you in the wilderness, I wanted to give you some examples. So here's my example. What I came up with for mine was, for my something interesting, was just about books. And I've got tons and tons of books, so I thought I would measure page counts. All right? Every book's a little different, so yeah, I'm measuring page counts. So here we go. So I just looked at all the books on a shelf, and I looked at the back page, and I measured the counts. All right, then I used Google Sheets to make a histogram of this. Okay, and there it is. And I did have to play with it a little bit. I did have to mess with the title. This title was already there. I did have to change this title, and then I had to make it even say this title for this one. And then I had to go over here, and these are my labels, and then I had to use functions. okay, in sheets, spreadsheet functions to figure these out, okay, to figure out what these various things were. But it can it can do all of these for you, okay. So now you might have to look up, right, how to do that. You know, Google how to use functions in Google Sheets. Okay, remember, we're practicing figuring this stuff out. All right, so you might have to do that for these guys. Okay, that's okay. All right, and if you need help on the histogram, and maybe the histogram is not actually one, maybe you need a line graph, like that's okay too. All right, just use whatever you're figuring out. It's going to be a little different for every person. All right. Now, so here is my exemplar. All right, this is something that, there it is, I just put it together. Just to give you like an idea, this took me about maybe an hour and a half to put together this morning. Yeah, how many pages in each book on Mr. Hunnicutt's shelf, like all together. So the data gathering and the writing it up took maybe an hour and a half. Okay, now obviously I kind of know what I'm doing, but yeah. So here I got here's my, hey, look at this. Here's my several sentence introduction about what I'm interested in. All right. So I want to investigate the length of the books on my shelf to know how long the average book is to determine the time commitment involved in reading. Now that would be a later step, but that's where we're going with it. All right. And then I talk about, hey, here's what variable thing I'm measuring. Every book's different. The easiest way to measure the difference is length of pages. In length of the book is to simply count the pages. All right. So yeah, I'm using just the page counts. And I just use the last page of the book. So I notice I am describing the variable, and then I'm talking about how I collected the data. All right, this little bit of the bracket here is me kind of telling you more. And yeah, I probably spent more time finding something easy to measure than I spent writing down the number of pages. Figuring out what data to collect and how to easily collect data will take longer than collecting the data itself. Okay, that's, I think, one of the more counterintuitive things about collecting data. Sometimes figuring out how to collect the data will take longer than to actually collect the data itself. All right, yeah, not always, but sometimes. All right, so just watch out for that. Now here is, hey, this is my raw data. This is just, yeah, I just put it in here. I actually had to retype this. I couldn't even cut and paste this because it wouldn't fit. And watch out for that with the spreadsheets. Notice the lack of white space. Doesn't this look, I mean, it looks pretty nice. It's not taking up pages upon pages like I am seeing in senior IAs right now. All right, now, hey, here's this picture. All right. Hey, this is the graph. Well, look at that. It's labeled and everything. The graph just like I asked for. Ooh, isn't that nice? Wonderful. Yay. Okay. So, this page, yeah. All right. Notice that it's compact. It looks good together, okay? Now, this is the basic statistics for the books on the shelf, and then this is some reflection on those. By the way, Google Docs does not really play well with putting text next to another table. I had to make a big table here, all right? And then I put this and this one half of the table and this on another side. I think you guys probably know how to do all that from Evan, but I didn't, so. All right, but yeah, so then I'm talking a little bit about my data, and I had that 725-page book was an IB textbook. Maybe it skewed my data. I think it did, okay? And then, hey, look at this. Here is my several sentence reflection on like what I learned. You know, I probably shouldn't have put that IB textbook. I was kind of worried about making sure I had around 30 data points, and I probably should have left it off. And then, but I did learn that most of the books on my shelf are between 150 and 450 pages because, hey, there's that mean, and then here's that standard deviation. So, you know, mean minus a standard deviation and mean plus a standard deviation, it's around this, all right? So, again, very basic, very simple, all right? Like, don't make this, like, we're starting, and I'm calling this a baby one because I want you to, like, it should be simple. Again, this only took me like an hour and a half. It'll probably take you a little longer, but that's okay, all right? Now, again, I want to remind you, who is your teacher? Yeah, you are your teacher, okay? So part of this, when you're saying like, I don't know what to do, okay, figuring out what to do is the whole point of this mini project, all right? You're going to have these moments. You're not going to know the next step. Now, I've tried to give you enough pieces that you can figure it out, but you should be able to figure it out on your own. And I've tried to start it with something very simple so that you can you should be able to do this by yourself and figure out what to do next by yourself, okay? We are building your figure it out muscles, okay? All right? that's what we're doing. Now, please, please, please ask me for help. I want to help you. I love helping you, okay? I really do enjoy it. However, me lifting weights doesn't build your muscles. So if we're spending time building your figure it out muscles, does Mr. Hunnicutt figuring it out for you actually help you build those muscles? Okay? Now, at the same time though, when most people lift weights, they have a spotter, okay, so that the weight doesn't come crashing down on them and they hurt themselves. Like think of me as your spotter, all right? Like, so that you don't hurt yourself in this process, all right? I'm not going to lift the weight for you, but I'd be happy to help prevent you from, like, you know, getting a barbell on your neck, all right? So when you do ask for help, and again, ask for help, but don't say something like, I don't know what to do, or what do I do, or I'm stuck, okay? What I want you to try instead say something like, I've tried this, and I've tried that, and I've tried this other thing, but I am still stuck. Can you point me in the right direction? That's the kind of thing, because that, when you're asking for help, one, that gives me a context of what you tried, because let's face it, like, if I offered to tell you to do this, like the first thing that we're like, well, I already tried that. It's like, okay, well, that was pretty helpful to know. And now on the flip side though, like, I might know that, like, that first thing that you tried was actually successful. So that means that I probably need to, like, dig down on whatever this is. All right. Like, ooh, I think you were on the right, you were headed in the right direction, but something happened. Let's figure out what that thing was so we can fix it. Okay. So yeah, please ask for help on this project. That's fine. Shoot me an email. I'm trying to be so much better about emails. I promise. All right. But like but still, we are building those figure it out muscles. So you need to get in the mindset like, hey, I'm my teacher. Part of what this is figuring it out. Now, if you get stuck or discouraged, you know, take a little break, take a deep breath, try a different path, okay? But if you keep getting stuck and discouraged, like, yeah, ask me a question. Like, it's okay. Like, please. So, all right. Hopefully that clarifies about this whole project and what my expectations are. So, this whole mini project. The Baby Math IA.